welcome back to the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host, Jameson Cable, and we got another great episode of Kentucky History here. Joining me is Mr. Gary Norman, and how you doing?
Good. You?
Doing good, doing good. We got a lot of good stuff here to talk about as far as Kentucky history. Um, some more about Lyon County and all that. But before we jump into that, quickly refresh those who may not know what's your Kentucky connection and so forth.
I am the voice of the Lyon County Historical Society and historian, tour guide, everything at the museum, whatever they need me to do. But history is really, really big for me on everything. I mean, not just Kentucky, it's any kind of history. I love it.
Mhm.
And it winds up that I get into it, I start digging, and I dig and dig and dig. I mean, and here I
And it
am.
consumes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. And that's why we got you here on the podcast is to talk some history and specifically Lyon County history. Last time we kind of, talked about the formation, all that kind of build up of that early first inhabitants, first settlers of Lyon County. But now we're kind of ready to move into a big topic that everybody always loves to get into is the Civil War. So,
Yeah.
where do we begin with the Civil War in Lyon County?
Well, it pretty much started with Highland B. Lyon. B was for Benton Lyon. He was the grandson of Matthew Lyon. And he actually was at West Point and became a first lieutenant. And it wound up that as soon as the war started, he was like, my sympathies are with the Confederacy. He resigned. It's talked about a lot that he instantly became a brigadier general. No, he started out basically a lieutenant and started out with he raised a company called Company F in the 3rd Kentucky Infantry. And then it became part of, they asked him to put together a artillery battalion, and it became the 1st Kentucky Artillery. He totally equipped it out of his own pocket. He got all the equipment and everything. Then it turned around and was given to Captain Robert Cobb, and it became, if people are not familiar, all the people in Kentucky that fought for Kentucky, they didn't really have the state behind them, so they were called the Orphan Brigade. Well, it wound up
Yes.
being the 1st Kentucky Artillery Battalion, but it also was called the Orphan Battery because everybody that was in it, they had no state that was backing them. They were backed by themselves. Later on, it's like 1862, Lyon was promoted to lieutenant colonel and wound up, he was in the 8th Kentucky Infantry. Well, it wound up that they were part of the regiment that was part of the garrison at Fort Donelson. And after Lyon and his group defended Fort Donelson with 3 major attacks by the Union troops, it finally fell. Grant took it over. The funny thing about that, to switch over just real fast, Grant, the general there was Buckner. He was the general at Fort Donelson. He and Grant went back through all West Point together, the Mexican Wars, everything. And then Buckner helped Grant get out of financial difficulties when they were living in New York. So when he surrendered Donelson, it wound up that Grant pulled him to the side and offered him money because it was going to be expensive being in a prisoner of war camp. Well, Buckner declined. He declined. And so it wound up that Grant was like, if you need something, you let me know. Well, Buckner was too good about it and said, no, I don't need anything. But it was funny because Buckner and Lyon got captured too at Fort Donelson. And they actually got stopped here in Edible and wound up that's where they got water and everything for the troop transport to water all the Confederates. Well, then they all got sent to different camps. He started out in Camp Morton in Indianapolis. Then he got moved over to Camp Chase in Ohio, and then finally Fort Warren. And then this started out um, in 1862 in November, and then it wound up that the following September, after it was all over with, there was a prisoner exchange, and Highland B. Lyon got released. So did Buckner and everybody.
Yeah, yeah.
But he wound up that his regiment got reorganized to the 8th Kentucky, and he now reenlisted for another 3 years, and he became a colonel, and he went under Earl Van Doren and Pemberton, and during the Vicksburg campaign. But he wound up that the Orphan Brigade were all in all the major engagements and had pretty much the most recognition as far as fighters. There were like 1,600 of them when they started out. And from what I found out, it's like they had less than 300 left at the end of the Civil War.
Oh wow! Yeah. So they were very active though.
Yeah.
Across the whole conflict.
Yep. But they were in Chattanooga. Everything. He got turned over at Chattanooga, and they placed him in charge of Briggs Battery there in Chattanooga. And it wound up that he saved all the cannons and 250 men from being captured by Grant at that time. So it wound up that they went back to Mississippi, and he wound up becoming a brigadier general. And then he took 800, and he gave a Christmas present to Kentucky. He sent with himself 800 cavalry to Kentucky. And people ask, why did he burn the courthouses? But he burnt 7 courthouses. But the reason was that the federal troops, that's where they were bunking the federal troops, and that's the headquarters for the federal troops. So he burned them. But his wife turned around and says, look, please, we live in Edible. Don't burn the Edible courthouse. He burned Marion, Princeton, Hopkinsville, everybody around us, except for Edible. But a General Grant had taken Paducah. And in the meantime, Highland B. Lyon had captured a bunch of officers from the Union Army, and they heard that Highland B. Lyon's wife and daughter were here in Edible. So they sent a gunboat down here and a paddle wheeler and captured her. And when I first started working and everything and reading and everything, everybody, all the older ladies and everybody at the museum were telling me, oh, the baby screamed so much, that's why they gave the baby and her back to Highland B. Lyon. But what it was they made terms to get the troops back. Highland B. Lyon wound up that he wrote terms with them that they weren't to touch his wife and daughter for the rest of the Civil War, because this was towards the end of the Civil War anyway. But terms were met, the troops were exchanged, he got his wife and daughter back, and then he went on back. They pulled the troops out when he was trying to push the law they had with the Confederacy about the troops having to fight, and they would come to a town, round up the men, and put them in the Confederate Army. He was doing that at the same time with the 800 cavalry. But Nashville was being attacked at the same time. And it wound up that he was doing his raid in Kentucky, but they lost the battle in Nashville. So he had to pull his troops out. And so they went back to Alabama and Mississippi. Well, it wound up that Highland B. Lyon was asleep in a house in, I'm trying to think where it was at. He was in Alabama. He was Red Hill, and he was asleep, and he got captured by the 15th Pennsylvania Cavalry. Well, he asked if he could put his clothes on. He was in his nightshirt, and he
Yeah.
had a hidden pistol. Well, come to find out, he blew the sergeant away and killed him. Well, it come to the point that his name was Lyon, Arthur Lyon. He was a sergeant. Anyway, Highland B.
Oh,
Lyon wound up that he got away in his nightshirt. And that's always been something that's really kind of funny that, he shot another man, which, it's bad that the guy died. But I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
his name being Lyon. And
yeah.
then at the
So do you have a
Civil
son?
War, Lyon went to Mexico. He went to
Uh,
Mexico, and then when he got everybody was kind of pardoned. He came back and got put on the prison uh, board, and it wound
mhm.
up that that's why we have the Kentucky Penitentiary. He actually said that it was coming to Edible, and his
Oh, okay.
initials. If you go up to the front door, his initials and everything are in the front door of the penitentiary.
Oh, wow, wow.
But that's pretty much Highland B. Lyon.
Yeah, well, that's there's always the question when you're talking about Kentucky Civil Wars: did the courthouse burn in the
Yeah,
county? And it's a lot of them did, and
yeah,
strategically, obviously, but a lot of them did. I mean, causes a lot of chaos if your courthouse burns down.
yeah.
But
It
that's
sure
good that
does.
Eddyville's or Lyon County's stayed intact because that probably saves a lot
Yeah,
of on the research side of things. Um,
yeah. It did.
and now, so was there any relation to the lions, the one that he killed?
No,
Do we
no
know about?
relation at all. No,
Wow,
nothing's
wow,
ever been found that he killed somebody that was a relation of his.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Um, yeah, that's still pretty interesting. So what about and that's a good coverage of just people going around, especially the Orphan Brigade and all that.
yeah,
Uh,
there's a
you know,
really good book called The Orphan Brigade.
mhm,
I've got it downstairs in the library, and it was one of the first Civil War books I ever read when I moved to Kentucky, and it's
mhm.
so packed with information. Somebody everybody would enjoy it if they read it and they were Civil War buff.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so in Lyon County, like what were we looking at? Mostly southern, mostly northern. Um,
Okay, well,
50.
Edible wound up being Confederate, even though it started
Mhm.
out with Lyon and everybody from Vermont and everything. They were called Yankees. It
Yeah,
switched and it became a Southern. Okay, now when Lyon was being chased, the feds and the governor of Kentucky was so put out with Lyon coming in here and burning all these courthouses, they asked the feds to come in and help get these guys out of here. Well, they hired a guy named, I think he was a colonel. His name was Charles Anderson. And he chased them and fought and everything. And then he got wounded at the Battle of Stone River. And he went to Ohio and to recover. And it wound up that he moved after the war, he moved back down here and bought William Kelly's property and everything at where Katoy is. And it wound up that he liked the town, so his wife liked the town they were living in Ohio. He wanted to duplicate it down here with the streets and the trees and everything. And it wound up being a Union town. So you've got them
okay.
3 miles apart. You've got Katoy here and you got Edible here, and it's still to that day to certain points that it's still Southern. But that's the alliance, how it was around here as far as the alliance.
Mhm, mhm. And I mean that's oftentimes you will find that around Kentucky. The city of a county or the county seat is one way. Then the outside outskirts of the county is another. And
Yeah,
even in some cases, you get two cities in a county that both are opposite, and
yeah,
a good rivalry is sparked.
it is. It is.
Um, so any sort of skirmishes, battles that
Well,
made it that
the
way.
biggest one probably would have been the Battle of Saratoga. It was called Saratoga Springs, and it wound up that General Smith in Paducah had heard that there was a cavalry unit that actually were training in Saratoga. So he wound up that let's see, The Union forces that came was Major Jesse Phillips and a Captain Morrison Wilcox, and they wound up that they had a parade on one afternoon on the 25th of October. Like they had a parade. They gave them all rations for 2 days. They boarded the Lake Erie paddle boat, and you're talking 300 troops, infantry. And they were also put in the gunboat, the wooden gunboat, the Conestoga. And they came down, they went to Smithland, came into the Cumberland River, and then came down. But they thought that the Confederates, that they would come another direction. Well, they stopped at, which is now Cotoy. They stopped there, and they marched all night through the woods. They didn't do anything on roads, anything like that. They bypassed Liberty Church. If people really knew the different roads and streets at that time, but anyway, they basically marched to Saratoga. They got there early in the morning. They took out the pickets without even firing a shot. Then they got within 300 yards. They opened up their first round, and then marched in more, got within 50 yards, another volley, and then, of course, the bayonets, and they charged. They were shooting for about 30 minutes at Saratoga. In fact, if you see one side of the church, there's a bullet hole still in the wall.
Oh, wow.
With a glass plate over the top of it. But they captured several men. They only killed 6 or 7 Confederates. There were only 3 Union that were injured. But the big part about it was one of the things I read a long time ago was that it was like a movie. The Union officers were on their horses outside the church, and a Confederate sympathizer from Caldwell County came out with a shotgun and blew him off the horse. But all I've ever found now and everything, and the battle reports that I've read and everything, was they only had 3 injured. So, point blank with a shotgun, they probably would have killed those guys on the horse, and they didn't. But they did capture a big Union sympathizer. His name was Jenkins, C.F. Jenkins. They captured him when they captured everybody else. But they got like 30 horses. They captured their wagons and all this. But a lot of the Confederates still got away on their horses and just ran. I actually metal detected out there and several years ago, and I actually dug up a Confederate pewter drinking cup off the side of the church.
Cool. Yeah.
And I have it downstairs in my collection. And that was pretty cool. When I first saw it, I thought it was a meat can that I dug up, and was like, this is crazy. And then I got to looking at it more, and it telescoped. And I have a book on artifacts that were carried by both sides, and what it looks like new and what it looks like if you probably find it in the ground. Anyway, that's what it was. It was a pewter drinking cup, which I thought was pretty cool for the county. Yeah. In fact, I'm in the process now. I think I'm going to take it and let them use it and put it in the museum over here at Lyon County from the Battle of Saratoga. So they'll have that. Anyway, that was pretty much the biggest battle. But the thing is, now the first skirmish in Kentucky was basically here at Lyon County.
Oh yeah.
The last skirmish in Kentucky, major skirmish, was here in Edible too. So it wound up that Lee had surrendered at Appomattox in April 9th of 65. Well, this battle here in Lyon County was April 29th of 65, 20 days later. And it wound up that a Union captain named Overby, he drove back 140 Confederate soldiers of the Northern Virginia, and it was commanded by an L.P. Seipert, S-Y-P-E-R-T. And there were casualties of both sides, and then everybody was like, we found out the war's over, But that was pretty much the last big skirmish here in Kentucky. The biggest thing here for us is we have a Congressional Medal of Honor winner, here in Lyon County.
Oh, yeah.
His name was Andrew Jackson Smith, and he was a slave, and his slave owner was a white man, and he told him that they were going to go to. His name was Elijah Smith, was the dad. Andrew Jackson Smith was the son, and they were going to Georgia to sign up for the Confederacy, and they were all going to fight together against the Union.
Mhm.
Well, Andrew Jackson Smith and a friend of his came back and said, "No, we're not going to fight." So in the middle of the night, these two get up and leave, and if they're familiar with the map of Kentucky, we're in Edible. They walked all the way to Smithland. Well, they ran into the 41th Illinois Regiment, and it wound up that they basically became servants for the officers. And it went on that it wasn't Union policy that they could sign them up as troops until the Emancipation Proclamation. But he became a servant for a gentleman named Warner, and it wound up that during he wound up being at like the Battle of Pittsburgh Landing in Tennessee on March 62, I think it was, and then Warner was in the Battle of Shiloh. Well, this is a really funny part of it. Warner had horses shot out of him twice, and basically Smith stayed over on the side with a horse, and Warner gets shot off the horse. Then here comes through the battle and bullets and everything. He brings Warner another horse. This happened 2 times, and he was bringing the third horse out. And Andrew Jackson Smith got shot in the left temple. Well, the bullet didn't go into the skull. It went under the skin and came up and stopped right between his eyes.
Oh.
So Warner was liked him so well that Warner had the Army surgeon remove the bullet and everything. And Smith went to his house in Illinois and recuperated.
Wow.
And then during that, the Emancipation Proclamation came out. So it wound up that he asked to be relieved and said he wanted to join. So he went to Massachusetts, where they were putting black regiments together. And he was trying to get there to be in the 54th, but he got there late, so he got put into 55. Well, then they had several skirmishes and everything. But what happened, and where Andrew Jackson Smith stood out, was the Battle of Honey Hill in South Carolina. They were going in to cut the train and communications for the South there. And the rebels were so entrenched with cannons and snipers and everything. Well, in a battle, people don't realize in the Civil War, you see the guys out there and and there's just guys not even shooting, they're holding flags. But the problem is they're taking the commands from their officers and using the flag to dictate what they're going to do in the battle, where to move, how to move, everything.
Yeah.
Well, Smith is real close, and he's a corporal, and he's real close to it, and the flag bearer gets shot. So before the flag hits the ground, Smith grabs the flag, and he had been watching this guy, so he knew what to do about this flag. So the whole battle for the whole day in Honey Hill, he was dictating the policy. And if you look at the map of Honey Hill, how it was set up, they were dead in the middle of all the Union line going straight up the hill where they were going. And they couldn't go in how you see on these movies and everything. You're all standing out straight in the line. They fire, you fire, and all that.
Yeah.
They were only like 6 abreast when they could go down through this valley. So anyway, he wound up that he got slightly wounded, scuff marks and all this from the battle and everything. But they were so appreciative of it that several people decided he was going up for Congressional Medal of Honor. But paperwork didn't get filed, paperwork got mislaid and all this stuff. So back then in the 1900s, early 1900s, the family and all that tried to have it reinstated. It didn't work. He was a black man. That was basically it. He wasn't going to get it. Well, then his family got together, and then the Historical Society here and Rose Hill got together, and they worked on it and pushed the paperwork and pushed the paperwork. Well, it got passed, and
Nice.
the president that gives him the Congressional Medal of Honor, Bill Clinton,
Wow.
which is really
Wow.
cool. I wanted
Yeah.
so bad to put a display here and have the family bring the Congressional Medal of Honor here, but it's in such a better place right now. They
Yeah.
donated it to the Lincoln Library. So
Oh,
there's a
cool.
display there with his medal and everything about him, which, more people's going to see it and
Yeah,
everything at that
definitely.
library. And considering the Emancipation Proclamation and everything, it's the perfect place.
Yeah.
So,
That's really cool. That is really cool. Um, and I wonder, like, how did the bullet? I mean, I guess I'm thinking.
I don't know. It blows me away.
Yeah,
You think about it. It came in the side. It had to come at an angle and came across. But
yeah, yeah.
they said
Wow,
it stopped
that's
right between it. The writing says it stopped right between his eyes.
and that
So
sounds extremely painful.
yeah, very, 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 very painful. I mean, can you imagine that in the middle of a battle? I mean,
Yeah,
he's just transporting horses.
yeah, yeah. That will. Yeah, even doing that part of it is sounds frightening enough. Running in there with a horse to
Yeah,
back and forth
and
and
not just one time,
talk about
about two
luck.
times. I mean,
Get
well, the
two
first
shot
time
out from under
he was
you.
on his horse, but two times to run in there. Crazy.
Yeah.
One other thing, if you golf, do you golf?
Oh, sorry. Did I golf? No, no, not much.
Oh, I don't
When
either.
I was
But
younger, but
there's a at Mineral Mounds Golf Course. It's named after William B. Matchon. That was his estate and his plantation during the Civil War, and all during the Civil War, it wound up that gunboats would come up the river, and and he had a giant Confederate flag on the front of his house, and they would shell him, and they took out his
wow.
garden, they hit his house, and all this stuff. They never stopped; they just went on by, but they'd fire at this house like target practice, and they hit it several times. Well, anyway, he was Matching wound up that he was in the Kentucky representative and the Kentucky Senate, and then he wound up becoming into the Senate in Washington. And then when the war was over, he ran to Canada because they were rounding up everybody that had to do with anything with the Confederacy. But then when I
Hmm.
think it was Johnson, pardoned everybody, then it wound up that he came back and actually went back to the Senate after that. But it's really funny because if you go to Mineral Mounds on the third hole, there's the foundation for the house. It finally burned
Oh,
back in the 40s or 50s, but the
hmm.
foundation for that plantation house is still there, and it's called Mineral Mounds, and that's what he called his house. So
Wow.
anyway,
Wow.
that's a little bit of tidbit of extra information.
Yeah, yeah. Just imagine sitting in your house and gunboat starts firing on you.
Yeah, yeah. And we
Oh,
still find a lot of cannonballs around here. I know one person had found two in their yard. I know one of the guys that their family was really big in the museum found a large cannonball on the side of the river, Cumberland River.
oh,
So
wow. Yeah. Um, well, so that's skirmishes, courthouse. I mean, a pretty notable soldier too to have a Medal of Honor.
yeah.
Winner
Well,
winner from Lyon.
he lived the whole Civil War. It wound up that he moved back here. He lived in Grand Rivers, Kentucky. He was big in real estate, and
Mhm,
then I think he is buried in Grand Rivers. So,
mhm. Yeah,
but
yeah.
most of the people that we talk about on the podcast and everything are in Riverview Cemetery here in Lyon County and Old Edible. I mean, you can go there, and it's a beautiful little cemetery.
Mhm.
So.
That's good. So kind of after the Civil War, any tension? Everybody just go back to being peaceful. Anything?
Well, basically, everybody just went back to doing their work. I mean, working the
Hmm.
mills and all that. Everybody came home and everything, and don't have anything that really just. It got to the point later on. That's a different day, though. The Night
Yeah.
Riders. Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
the
That
Night
is that is
Riders.
a different.
There's some really really big stuff here in Lyon County about the Night Riders.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
that's
I'll
Lyon County
we
in the Civil War.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's good stuff, and I always like seeing those parallels with other counties in Kentucky,
Yeah,
um, and especially the differences. Would you say Lyon County as a whole more Confederate or more Union?
Confederate.
Confederate. Yeah.
People that I've
And,
talked to and people around the county that I've talked to, they're more Confederate sympathizers.
mhm. And you kind of more west you go,
Yeah,
Kentucky. You're going to find more Confederate. The more east you go, it's going to be more Union.
yeah,
Um, and then you know, bluegrass area, a little bit more toss up, I guess. There's a
yeah.
lot more going on uh, uh, in those areas. But uh, well, um, thanks again for joining us again. Like you said, next time we'll kind of dive into those Night Riders, and
Okay.
that is some interesting Kentucky history that everybody needs to know about because it is. Uh,
Well, people don't realize
complicated.
what the Night Riders actually were.
Uh,
They really don't. I mean, you'll mention something to the Night Riders, and they'll say this or that, and it's like they just got a taste of it. They really don't know the doctor.
yeah.
They really don't know the how they organize. They don't know why they organize.
Hmm.
They have no clue that it was a basically a tobacco cartel out of New York that caused it all. So,
Yep.
and I'll tell you
Yeah.
this a little bit, which I'll tell you next time.
Mhm.
Singer sewing machines.
Yeah.
They played a big part in the Night Riders.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh,
but I won't tell you
that is
now.
yeah. I don't know about that. So that's
Okay,
interesting. All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. And anything else before we go?
that's it. Thank you for inviting me in. Anytime.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one.